What do a beehive, a 14th century Nordic shaman, the Jewish Kabbalah, and the atoms inside a dying star all have in common?
Well, on the surface, absolutely nothing.
Right. But if you strip away the history and look at the underlying architecture, they are all governed by a single, inescapable geometric blueprint, the hexagon.
Which is just wild to think about.
Okay, let's unpack this, because today we are taking all those dusty chalkboards and boring protractors from your high school geometry class, and we are throwing them right out the window.
Yeah, good riddance.
We are looking at geometry not as some tedious math problem, but as a literal blueprint for human behavior, for psychological balance, and potentially the structural memory of the universe itself.
It really is a massive shift in perspective. I mean, we are taking a simple shape, just a six-sided figure, and using it as a lens to examine everything from, how you might organize your daily schedule to how atoms maintain their fundamental stability.
Exactly. And I can promise you, listening right now, by the time we finish this deep dive, your perspective on a simple six-sided shape is going to completely change.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to change how you view efficiency and, honestly, how you view the fragmented parts of your own personality. So let's dive right in. Let's start with the physical reality,
Yeah.
the actual literal anatomy of a hexagon.
Right. So to understand the power of this shape, we first have to look at the structure itself. In the world of crystal formation, most systems are based on variations of four-sided figures. They operate on three axes,
Okay.
but the hexagonal crystal system introduces this structural anomaly. It has an additional fourth axis.
Right, and trying to visualize math through audio can be rough, so let's try to picture it this way for everyone listening. Imagine three flat lines intersecting each other, kind of like a starburst, all lying flat on a table.
Right, a flat plane.
Yeah, and they are equal in length, and they meet at a perfect 60-degree angle.
Mm-hmm.
That creates your flat, two-dimensional hexagon, like a six-sided stop sign.
Yeah.
But then you introduce what's called the C-axis.
Exactly. So imagine taking that flat, six-sided shape on the table and pulling it straight up into the air at a perfect 90-degree angle.
Oh, so it becomes a three-dimensional pillar.
Yes, exactly. That 90-degree vertical C-axis creates forms with three angles at 120 degrees and a perfectly stable inner hexagonal structure.
That makes sense.
And in nature, you see this pillar shape in crystals like apatite, aquamarine, beryl, morganite, and emerald. They stand tall, they are rigid, and structurally they are just incredibly stable.
But we aren't just talking about rocks here. The really fascinating part of this deep dive is how we can translate this physical, geological structure into a human lifestyle.
Yes, the behavioral aspect.
Right. And this is where I have to ask you, the listener, right now, are you a hexagonal person?
It's a great question because if we look at the psychological traits associated with this geometry, a hexagonal personality is highly specific.
Extremely specific.
You are someone who is highly analytical, incredibly consistent, and you strive toward success with an almost rigid dedication.
And you despise wasting time. I mean, geometrically, the hexagon has the smallest perimeter in relation to the area it encloses.
Right, it's the ultimate mathematical symbol for the efficient use of space.
Which is the exact reason bees use hexagons to build their honeycombs. So if you think about living a hexagonal lifestyle, it's like the ruthless, beautiful efficiency of a honeycomb. No wasted space, no wasted energy.
What's fascinating here is the mechanics behind that efficiency. Like, a hexagonal lifestyle isn't about being frantic or busy.
Because frantic energy is actually highly inefficient.
Exactly. Hexagonal efficiency is about making ideas real through conscious, step-by-step processes. If you operate this way, distractions and diversions are simply set aside.
Right, you just block them out.
Your actions are methodically planned out, and whether your goal is personal, political, or spiritual, you execute it without deviation.
The shortest, most honest path is your favorite one. But here is where I get tripped up a bit. It's one thing to adopt a honeycomb mindset, but it's another to look at the metaphysical claims around this.
Ah, the crystals themselves.
Yeah. There are recommendations in the sources to actually take a physical hexagonal crystal like an emerald or aquamarine and place it close to your solar plexus chakra to introduce more self-control into your life. How does holding a rock actually change your behavior?
Well, it's less about the rock having some, magical frequency and more about the mechanism of a tactile psychological anchor.
Okay, an anchor.
Right. The
Great.
hexagon represents a structure that holds itself together perfectly. It is entirely self-contained. When you take a physical, tangible representation of that perfect geometric balance and place it near the solar plexus, which in Eastern traditions is the energetic center associated with willpower and discipline, you are basically creating a biofeedback trigger.
Oh, I see. So it's a physical reminder. Every time I feel that perfectly structured crystal against my skin, my brain registers the tactile sensation and it snaps my focus back to my goals.
Precisely. It recalibrates your focus.
Yes.
You are using the physical geometry as a tool to map your internal psychology.
Okay, I actually love that. So we have this idea of the hexagon as a masterclass in personal productivity and psychological anchoring. But we immediately need to scale this up,
We do.
because if this geometry is so inherently efficient, ancient builders and thinkers must have noticed it. Which brings us right into the realm of sacred geometry.
And of all the geometric shapes in esoteric traditions, the hexagon is arguably the most powerful.
Without a doubt.
We see it appear in incredibly profound spiritual symbols, the most prominent perhaps being the Star of David, also known as the Seal of Solomon.
Right, and the Star of David is considered one of the oldest symbols ever used by humanity. It existed long before it was formally incorporated into the religious philosophies of Judaism.
Yeah.
And if you look at the center of the Star of David, right in the middle, what is it? It's a perfect hexagon.
It is. It's formed by the interlocking of two triangles. You have one triangle pointing upward and one triangle pointing downward. This introduces the concept of energetic polarity. The upward pointing triangle represents expansive, positive energy, often aligned with male energy, or in atomic terms, protons.
Right.
And the downward-facing triangle represents receptive, negative energy aligned with female energy, or electrons.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because I want to make sure we are crystal clear on the terms positive and negative here.
Yes, that's an important distinction.
This has absolutely nothing to do with modern social concepts of gender or morality. It is strictly about energetic charges. Think of a battery or a magnet. You literally
Right.
cannot have a functioning battery without a positive terminal and a negative terminal.
Exactly.
In the atom, you have positive particles, the protons, and negative particles, the electrons.
That's the perfect analogy. Atoms absolutely must have an equal number of electrons and protons just to find stability. They have no choice in the matter.
Right, it's just physics.
Without that balance, matter collapses. The electrons essentially mate with the protons. And if we look at the traditions of alchemy, this balancing process is referred to as the chemical union.
Let's unpack alchemy for a second, because I think a lot of people just picture medieval guys in robes trying to turn lead into gold.
Right, the cartoon version.
Yeah. But alchemy was actually an early framework for understanding atomic bonds and psychological integration, right?
Exactly. The lead into gold idea was largely a metaphor. True alchemy was the study of transformation. Alchemists were early scientists and psychologists trying to understand how opposing forces like light and dark, positive and negative, reason and emotion combine to create stability.
Wow.
The chemical union is the fundamental requirement for matter and the mind to hold together.
So the Star of David, with its hidden hexagon, is essentially a diagram of atomic stability. It's a map of protons and electrons perfectly balanced.
Yes.
But there's a bold claim to make here. Understand the scientific atomic balance of a hexagon isn't actually that useful to your daily life.
Right, it lacks practical utility for the average person. I mean, the real esoteric honey of the hexagon, if we go back to our honeycomb metaphor, is revealed when you use it as a psychological tool.
So how does that work in practice?
Well, by understanding that just as the physical atom needs an equal balance of protons and electrons to exist, your mind requires a balance of emotional intelligence with reason.
Okay, the two triangles.
Right, you have the upward triangle of logic and action and the downward triangle of intuition and feeling. When you achieve that inner geometric balance, you evoke the forces governed by the universal laws of nature. You channel your energies efficiently without internal friction, and that is what allows you to actually become the creator of your own reality.
You are literally using the geometric blueprint of the universe to architect your own mind. That is wild.
It really is.
And if we are talking about blueprints, we have to look at how this maps onto the most complex geometric system we have, the Kabbalah.
Yes. The Kabbalah offers a profound mathematical system to explain the meaning of life and the structure of the universe. At its base, this is known as the Sephirot, or the Tree of Life.
I want to guide you, the listener, through a mental drawing here. Imagine a blank piece of paper. Now, picture an intricate geometric pattern that represents the Tree of Life. From this tree sprouts a much larger, more complex pattern called the Flower of Life.
Right.
Picture drawing a single circle in the middle of your page. Now, take a compass and draw 6 overlapping circles all around that first one, like the petals of a flower. Then draw another layer of overlapping circles around those, and another. You end up with a massive, beautifully complex network of interlocking rings.
It looks almost like a chainmail mesh of circles.
Yes, exactly. Now imagine zooming in on that dizzying pattern network. You zoom past the complexity until you isolate a very specific hidden structure inside of it, a core group of circles. This hidden structure is called the fruit of life.
And the fruit of life is incredibly specific. It is composed of exactly 13 circles. In esoteric teachings, this 13-circle fruit of life is considered the ultimate gateway to higher consciousness.
A gateway built out of exactly 13 circles. And here is where the geometry loops back on itself in a way that is just so satisfying. If you take those 13 circles and you draw straight lines directly through the center point of each one to connect them, what shape emerges on your page?
It's amazing.
You form a 6-pointed star, join the outer edges together, and you have a perfect hexagon.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to examine the significance of that number, 13.
Right.
In these traditions, 13 is synonymous with unity. It represents the exact transition point between the physical realm and the spiritual realm.
Okay, so a central point surrounded by 12 others, 13 circles. This specific mathematical pattern 12 around 1 is where things start getting slightly eerie.
Oh, definitely.
Because once you see it, you realize this exact configuration repeats throughout literally all of human history, mythology, and psychology.
It is staggering when you start laying the examples out side by side.
Let's actually count them out. Think about the most famous groupings in history. You have Jesus Christ surrounded by his 12 disciples, that's 13. You have King Arthur sitting at the center of the round table, surrounded by 12 knights.
Right. You have the 12 signs of the zodiac, all orbiting around the one central sun.
The 12 imams following Muhammad, the 12 tribes of Israel.
It crosses into Eastern traditions as well. The Wheel of Dharma has 12 stations of life around the outer edge, and the 13th point is the center of the wheel itself.
Wow.
In ancient mythology, you constantly see pantheons of 12 gods in Greek, Roman, and Zoroastrian myths.
So what does this all mean? How does a geometric concept of 13 circles 12 around 1 translate across so many massive, entirely distinct cultural boundaries? More importantly, how does this actually map onto human personality?
To answer that, we have to look at the work of the 20th century psychoanalyst Carl Jung. Jung was heavily influenced by these ancient teachings, these pantheons, and these geometric maps.
Okay.
He looked at all these stories of 12 gods or 12 knights and realized they weren't just historical tales or myths, they were psychological mirrors. Jung outlined 12 primary personality archetypes that exist within the human subconscious.
Right. Archetypes like the hero, the caregiver, the rebel, the creator. These are the 12 fundamental drives within all of us.
Precisely. The 12 around 1 pattern is literally a map of the complete human psyche. The 12 outer circles represent the various fragmented archetypes of our personality.
Makes sense.
For example, everyone has a shadow, the repressed, darker parts of ourselves we hide from society. Everyone has a persona, the mask we wear at work or with friends.
So if I am heavily leaning into my caregiver archetype, but I completely ignore my shadow, I am off balance. I'm lopsided.
Exactly. You are geometrically unstable. The goal of Jungian psychology, a process he called individuation, is to acknowledge and integrate all 12 of these archetypes. You can't kill your shadow. You have to balance it with your hero.
Right.
You can't live entirely as your persona.
Yeah.
You have to balance it with your authentic creator.
And when you do that, when you successfully integrate all 12 parts of yourself,
You become the 13th element. You become the center point.
you discover your true nature. That is incredible. So the 13 circles that make up the hexagon, the food of life, it is a literal roadmap for psychological wholeness.
It really is.
When you integrate all the different sides of yourself, you stand in the center, you achieve that perfect hexagonal stability we talked about earlier with the physical crystal.
It is the ultimate expression of the alchemical union we discussed earlier, just entirely applied to the human mind.
Okay, my mind is thoroughly expanded at this point.
Right.
But if this geometry perfectly maps our internal psychology, does it actually map the physical universe? Does this 12 around 1 hexagon show up in raw nature?
It absolutely does. And to see it, we have to look at the Hexagon rune.
Okay.
This is an ancient symbol devised in its crude form by the shamans of the Nordic tribes in Northern Europe.
Which is fascinating because a 13-circle fruit of life pattern found in the Jewish Kabbalah in the Middle East is geometrically identical to the pattern of the Hagel rune from these Nordic traditions in Northern Europe.
Completely identical.
You have ancient mystics and northern shamans completely isolated from each other,
Yeah.
using the exact same geometric code.
Yes, and the reason they arrived at the same code is through observation of the natural world. The Hagel rune bears a striking resemblance to the microscopic image of water crystals.
Wait, hold on. Stop right there. I have to challenge this.
Go for it.
14th century Nordic shamans did not have microscopes.
Yeah.
They didn't have any advanced optical technology. How could they possibly observe microscopic water crystals to draw this rune?
This raises an important question, and you are absolutely right to catch that. They did not have microscope, but they didn't need them because the macrocosm reflects the microcosm.
Oh, I see.
They couldn't see the microscopic atoms of water, but they could see snowflakes. Snowflakes universally form in six-sided hexagonal structures because of the molecular bonds of water.
Wow, right.
They could see the hexagonal cracking of ice on a frozen lake. They could see basalt columns, those massive hexagonal rock formations created by cooling lava.
Ah, okay. So they observed this recurring six-sided blueprint at the macro level in raw nature, and they intuited that it must be the fundamental law of reality. They encoded the geometry of ice and stone right into their rune.
Precisely. They intuitively mapped the universal laws. And the connection goes even deeper.
How so?
Well, the Hagel rune doesn't just look like a snowflake. Esoterically, it is described as looking like a conceptual star,
Yeah.
which is profound when you consider modern astrophysics.
Right.
Science confirms that many of the heavy elements found here on Earth, the carbon in our bodies, the iron in our blood, the oxygen in our water, were originally formed inside the fiery cores of stars.
And those elements were only released out into the universe when those massive stars burnt out and exploded in supernovas.
Exactly. So the very elements that make up those water crystals, the physical Earth beneath our feet, and our own internal biology all carry the structural atomic memory of the dying stars they were born in.
Which means when the ancient tribes observed the hexagonal ice and the Kabbalists observed the overlapping circles, they were unknowingly mapping the atomic building blocks of the cosmos.
It's all connected.
It is a continuous thread from a star exploding billions of years ago all the way down to the six sides of a honeycomb. I mean, we have covered an immense amount of ground today.
It really has been a journey from the very small to the incredibly vast.
Let's quickly retrace our steps. We started by looking at the literal 60-degree and 90-degree angles of an emerald pillar. We translated that physical rigidity into the honeycomb efficiency of the hexagonal lifestyle, where every action is focused and purposeful.
Right.
And we talk about how holding a physical crystal can act as a tactile anchor to keep us on track.
We then explored how that physical efficiency translates into energetic balance, using the Star of David to understand the alchemical union of positive protons and negative electrons.
Then we zoomed into the Kabbalist tree of life to find the 13 circles of the fruit of life. We counted out the 12 around 1 pattern in history, which maps perfectly onto Jung's 12 archetypes orbiting the one fully integrated human psyche.
And finally, we traced that exact same geometry through the ancient Nordic Hegel rune, seeing how ancient people observed the macro patterns of snowflakes and ice all the way back to the elements forged in the heart of dying stars.
It's a lot to take in. How should someone listening right now actually apply all of this?
I think the best way to apply this is to look at the geometry of your own life. Where do you need to introduce more of that hexagonal efficiency?
That's a great question.
Are there areas where you need more step-by-step methods and discipline? And perhaps more importantly, looking at the Jungian archetypes in the Star of David, where do you need to balance your reason with your emotion to find your own internal stability? Are you ignoring your shadow? Are you trapped in your persona? Finding that center point is the key.
Bit of the perfect takeaway. Because everything we've discussed leaves us with a scientific reality that is impossible to ignore. Atoms absolutely must have an equal number of protons and electrons simply to find stability and balance.
Exactly.
It isn't a suggestion, it is the law of physics. If they don't have balance, they collapse. So I want to leave you with this final thought to mull over. If the most fundamental microscopic building blocks of the entire universe require this strict hexagonal blueprint of balance just to exist, what happens to our own lives, our own minds, and our own goals when we completely ignore this blueprint of balance in our daily routines? Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration today. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.